Very, very important. And if you want to move into the area of emotional intelligence, one key thing that you have to discuss is social skills. I'm sure you have had some debate going around we don't hire based on degrees. They're no longer important. What is important is the skill set that you have. They are just talking about this element of EQ. They are simply saying that I don't care whether you have a degree or not. What I care about is, do you have the capacity to work with people? Do you have the capacity to work in a group? Do you have the capacity to communicate? The competence is one thing, which is also important, but do you have all these things? And so I thought we would run through these life skills. Some people call them life skills, others call them soft skills, others call them 21st century skills, to just let us know what is important in the workplace now. So again, a model there. I want to start with problem solving. You might be a very good accountant, Bachelor of Science in Accounting, ACCA, you've done all the levels and all that, or you're a very good marketeer, Bachelor's in Marketing, SIM, you're the Master of Marketing. The question is, what is your ability to solve problems? Remember the theme, the topic of this conversation is leveraging emotional intelligence for career growth. So on one hand, you have the competence, but you have the skill set, the social skills to support your competence. So problem solving, you have got a client who is not really playing ball. Every person who goes there, they don't want to sign the deal. What is your capacity as head of marketing to solve that problem? What are you doing to solve the challenge of that client? You are a CEO of an organization, and there is a challenge. You've gone to the board, they have messed up the whole of yourself and your senior leadership team. They have cut your budget. They have told you to restructure the organization and cut people's jobs. What is your capacity to problem solve? Problem solving works with critical thinking. You cannot solve a problem unless you critically think about it. So what is your capacity to critically think around the problem and fix it? Effective communication. I know of lawyers who know the law in and out, but they cannot communicate. So what happens? They deal with the research of the case and the law and everything and give it to somebody who has effective communication skills to go and present. That's one hand. But when you go even deeper and deal with the verbal and non-verbal communication skills, there are many people who are very good, brain wines. So that is now IQ, very heavy, but they cannot appreciate the verbal and non-verbal communication. So how do you bring yourself back and play into the play and develop effective communication skills? Very important. Decision making. You cannot be a leader, you cannot be an entrepreneur without effective decision making skills. And we have a whole training on decision making models. So how do you make decisions that will be sustainable even after you have left, and people know they were grounded in leadership models? Creative thinking, very related to critical thinking and feeds into problem solving. What is your level of critical thinking? What is the level of creative thinking as a person, as a student, as an entrepreneur? How creative are you? And how do you use that creative thinking to fix issue number one, which is problem solving? Interpersonal relationships. You were hired, and before you even finish your 3-month probation, you have quarreled with everybody. You started with your own department, you have quarreled with everybody. You don't want anybody to sit, to take your chair. The chair just becomes a problem. You start with the chair, fighting with the chair. Then now, from the department, you have fought with all the other support departments. You're still doing your probation. Clearly, you have a challenge with interpersonal relationships. You might be brainy, IQ, very good, but EQ is failing you. So how do you consciously know that there is a challenge here and work towards fixing it? The other one is self-awareness. That is, of course, anchor number one of EQ. Are you self-aware? Do you build yourself to be aware of this is my strength, this is my weakness, and I should work on the weakness? Empathy is another one. It's I've already discussed that. It is an anchor itself of EM, of EQ. So how do you work on empathy, especially as a leader? Because if you're not empathetic as a leader, you will have people not bonding with you because you don't understand where they are coming from, and so they feel you are off their word. You're in another word, they're in another word. So how do you work around fixing empathy as a key element of leadership, especially? But even outside leadership, even when you're not part of leadership, you need to be empathetic. You need to understand where your co-workers are coming from when they cannot finish work at the same pace as you. You need to be empathetic when your other members of the team ask, can I leave early? I don't feel fine. Can you finish what I was working on? Because I really don't feel fine. Today is a bad day for me. Empathy, very key. Coping with stress and coping with emotions, very important life skills, very important soft skills. If you do not have the capacity to cope with stress, to cope with emotions, you'll have challenges working in a very fast-paced world. Why? Because that's what we deal with on a daily, especially as leaders. You are literally in charge of the stress of the whole organization. So if you yourself, you don't have the capacity to cope with stress, how will you run the organization? Emotion, you are like the shock absorber of every emotion in the organization. So how do you build the capacity to cope with all the 120, 30 people that are in the organization, manage them, and therefore be able to manage the organization? People have come to you crying, and you join them and cry. Hey, boss, how can that happen? They have, you have gone to do a presentation with a donor, or yes, donor for those that are working in the NGO world. The donor has refused. The people are stressed. You're stressed. They are crying. You're crying. So how are you going to give them a sense of direction if you are off totally? Okay? The board has told you to restructure. You are crying. The team is crying. So who is the leader? So these are the life skills that the World Health Organization thought are the top 10. And they say those are the top 10 skills, life skills, I would say emotional intelligence skills, that you need to be successful in the world of work. I would say in the world, because irrespective of where you are, you need these skills for you to be able to, I would say emotional intelligence is the oil of IQ. You might be very brainy, but if you don't have any of these, if there is a gap in your EQ skills, you'll have challenges. So it's very important that you think through this, do your mapping, and we'll be doing that at the end of the presentation so that you know where the gaps are, and then you know what to work on. And that is the evidence. This is researched work. One coming from the World Economic Forum, Fisher of Jobs report for last year. They say that the qualities associated with emotional intelligence, such as resilience, curiosity, lifelong learning, motivation, and self-awareness, are highly prized by businesses and will continue to be so for the next few years. And you just need to look at these, the qualities that have been listed there, and you see why it's important. If you're not resilient at the workplace, clearly you have challenges, irrespective of whether you're in leadership or part of a team. Curiosity, lifelong learning, motivation, very important. If you don't have these qualities, you will have challenges in a fast-paced workplace. So clearly, even without the research, it makes, common sense that without these qualities, you cannot thrive at the workplace. Then some researchers there, emotional intelligence is strongly correlated with academic performance, as emotions play a key role in human cognition. Now, let's just even talk about these qualities that are up here. Resilience. Clearly, if you're a student anywhere, you will need to have motivation, because you will do a coursework and things are not working out. You will go to a lecture and the lecturer has turned on you. So do you have the resilience to go back, think through, and come back the following day? Curiosity. Are you curious beyond what the lecturer has said? Lifelong learning, do you research beyond what the lecturer has given you? So let's even go to teamwork and interpersonal relations. All university learning is around teams, group work. So if you don't have teamwork as part of your skill set, how do you hope to pass your university? So again, this is a given. Without 21st century skills or emotional intelligence, you certainly will have challenges, even as a learner at any institution of learning that thrives on group work, on discussions, and all that. And then the last one, from Harvard Business Review again, 2019 report, 71% of employers value emotional intelligence more than technical skills when evaluating candidates. You must have seen, read somewhere about people that are no longer asking for university degrees. That's where it's coming from. Google, Facebook, all those. The question is, do you have the emotional intelligence to work with people and learn with them and grow with them? Not that you will go there without knowing anything about computer what and you know that is just one part, and I'll be showing you where that is. That's just one part. That's what gets you in. But you have the intelligence, the emotional intelligence to work with people, grow with people, strive in teams, or are you a standalone? You want to do things yourself on your own. So that is the evidence that is there on those different places, the world of work, academia, and generally employment. So what do we do after getting to know all that? After getting to understand the conceptual and how things work out, what does it mean for us? And that's where I will be going now. Now, you must have realized that most organizations have changed the way they run, especially interviews. And so I thought I would show you how emotional intelligence is being embedded into the world of work, the current corporate practices. And so the first one is apprenticeship and internships. When people are being given apprenticeship, so your apprentice is you have finished your university, and so they give you some 6 months or even sometimes 1 year period to come and work with them, not as an employee, but as an apprentice. The main thing they are studying there, of course, if you're coming in as a marketing person, you have your bachelor's in marketing, they know you have it. So the IQ side is already sorted. So why do they want to work with you for 6 months or 1 year before they employ you? They are trying to figure out, are you aligned? And that's where the second bullet comes in. Culture fit, recruitment. Are you aligned? Can they work with you? Do you have the emotional intelligence required to thrive in that workplace? The same applies to internships. They are, of course, on one hand, it is the university that is sending you there as an intern, but on the other hand, the interest of the organization is to find out if this person was to work with us long term, are they culturally aligned? So that is one issue that you'd be interested in. So if you're coming in as an apprentice, they already know that you are brainy. You have the certificate, you have the transcript. They know, you know these things. Make sure that you're thinking through on every day, what is the culture of the organization and how can I fit in? Because that's what they are testing in that apprenticeship. Culture fit, recruitment and promotion, I've talked about that one. There are many people who come and move into an organization. They are brainy, they are hardworking, they are giving results, but because their emotional intelligence is low, they can never be promoted. Why? Because if you're failing on your emotional intelligence as an employee, then there's no way you can be promoted to lead a team. That's very important. So you're there thinking that you are being bewitched. The other people come and they are promoted over me, yet I'm the one who inducted them. I know everything in this organization. I've been here for 8 years. No. Do a self-reflection and find out where is the gap. And most probably it will be around your EQ. Which life skill are you missing? Which emotional intelligence aspect are you missing that is making you get stuck at a role? So organizations are now doing recruitment based on culture fit analysis, and they are doing promotions based on culture fit analysis. And that is usually about do you have the relevant emotional intelligence capacities? So think about that as well.
The intelligence community,
The third one,
and in the situation, ensuring
can you
the
help me
safety
mute?
of
Somebody, the CEO or whoever is going to interview you, takes you to a hotel for a lunch or a dinner. Some are even worse, not worse. Some take you to a beach. They are trying to deal with the person because they already, I mean, they have seen your CV, they have seen your academic papers, they know you know these things. What they are trying to find out is the human being that the human being behind the papers, if I can say it that way. And they're trying to find out, do you have the emotional intelligence to thrive in the team? And you go to a dinner or a luncheon, and part of the interview is they will have told the lady who does the serving, the waitress, to pour water on you, but as a mistake. And they see, how do you handle that situation? Because you're coming to lead my organization, I need to know when things are not going well, how will you respond? Especially to people who are not above you, people below you, like a waitress. If she poured water on you when we are out in a dinner, how would you respond? That is the new style of interviewing. It is dealing with issues of emotion and the ability to manage the emotion. EQ questions, you must have attended interviews where the first question is, what motivates you? It is not what you know. It's not GMAT tests or those tests that you have 100 questions and you're circling. That's still being done in public service and those other jobs in public service. But for employees that are moved into the 21st century corporate practice, you are dealing with questions of the heart, questions of motivation, questions of what makes you wake up in the morning. When they ask what makes you wake up in the morning, they're not asking about the alarm clock. No, they are trying to find out what motivates you to wake up and go and work. That is an element of EQ. They are trying to figure out your motivations and what makes you go to work. 360 feedback is another one. 360 feedback usually has some elements of your performance, which is more around your technical capacity. But the bigger part of 360 feedback is around how you relate with others, which is why they ask your co-workers, they ask your bosses, they ask your clients, they are trying to get a 360 holistic analysis of yourself, not just performance of the role. So that is another element of trying to analyze your ability to have relevant EQ. One challenge I have with 360 feedback, and I discussed this on Wednesday with another team I was training, I am seeing two very broad issues with 360 feedback. On one hand, you have toxic work environments, where the 360 feedback, even you who is receiving it, even you, the supervisor who is going to use the 360 feedback to support your team member, you can clearly see this person who wrote this 360 feedback was venting, was fighting person was. And so you cannot use the 360 feedback that even you, the supervisor, do not believe is relevant for your staff member. Somebody, you're doing appraisals in December, somebody is venting some 5 pages of 360 feedback about something that your team member did in January. Why did you wait from January to December to give me this feedback or to give it to your team member? And why did you write 5 pages over one issue? You're just venting. So that is one element. Workplaces that have toxic work environment. And then there is this one where the environment is very good. And in its goodness, somebody gives you 360 feedback and you cannot seem to see what is there to develop about your team member. Because everything is nice. They have not, even on areas of improvement, you can't seem to nail down and find out what actually is the area of improvement here. Because the work culture is very nice. So everybody is nice to each other. So they don't want to write anything that might look like there is a challenge on the person. So those two extremes toxic and very nice work environments have challenges with 360 feedbacks. Something for HR professionals, and I can see some on this call, to think through. How do you make the 360 feedback of your organization more relevant for the person who is supposed to be growing? Because at the end of the day, it is meant to grow me. So how do you make it relevant for me? And I can actually read and say, this one is an area that I should be developing in. So something to think about. Referral networks and headhunting. Headhunting is a new, not really new, it's something that has happened over time, but now it's becoming almost the norm, where people no longer do adverts. If you go to the Monitor, New Vision, or any newspaper, people no longer put adverts there. You want a trainer, you know Modern is a good trainer, you just get people that know Modern and ask him, one, do you think he can train? That's one issue sorted. And after that, they ask a very good question. Yeah, now that we know he knows how to train, but how is he? How is Modern? Now that question is outside my technical capacity. It's dealing with a human being, my EQ. So that is a very important question. And that is really done in headhunting and referral networks. Whoever has done the referral is going to answer that question. And they will, based on that, to put you on the short list, not advertise the job in a newspaper or anywhere. So that is very important. Job trials is very similar to an apprenticeship. The difference is apprenticeship is for young entry level. Job trials, anybody can do it. Job trial is, you apply for a job, you go through the interview, you finish the whole process, and then they tell you that for the next 3 days, you will be doing a job trial with us. And they bring you in a normal work environment, and they are trying to understand. So they give you work to do for those 3 days, and they're trying to understand, how would you live with people? How would you work with people in that environment? And so clearly what they are testing is not your ability to complete a project, but your EQ skills. The challenge that I also have with that is, somebody can play you and act a role in that period of job trial. So you need to be, as whoever is observing the person doing the job trial needs to make sure that the environment is as organic as possible, so that the human being in them can be seen. Job trial, by the way, includes, you have gone for, you've seen, read about interviews where the thing that they are trying is, from when you enter the gate, have you greeted the security guard? Did you talk with the security guard when you entered the gate? It's a test. It's part of the interview. You don't know, but they're actually watching. Some even put security, cameras to confirm when he entered, did he greet the askari or the security guard? And then after that, when he moved into the office, did he greet or talk to the receptionist? Did he talk with the lady who does, or the man who does the sweeping, the sweepers, the cleaners in the office? At the end of the day, they are doing all that to confirm, what is your level of emotional intelligence? Do you only talk with the boss and your peers, or are you all round? Are you talking with everybody and trying to, work with everybody at the workplace? Job trials, that's one. There are so many personality trials, personality tests. I would encourage you to, most of them are free. This one, Enneagram personality test, is free. So you could go do a test for yourself to find out who you are. But also, most employers, whenever they are going to employ you, make you go through some kind of test, personality test, to find out who is the human being that we are trying to employ. So those are some, and I'm sure there are so many, the HR people that are on the call can give us many others. But those are some of the current corporate practices that make EQ a central part of current corporate practice. What does this mean for us? It means that as a human, as a person, if you're coming into a workplace and any of these being done, please be aware that what they are testing is not your technical competence, but your emotional competence. So be clear on what the test is about. If you're going for an interview, please greet the askari, because most probably that's where the test is, or the cleaner, because that is where the new space for interviews is. You might fail the interview before you go into the interview room. So that's what this means for the person who is doing the career. What it means for employers and leaders is, if you're still doing IQ tests, GMAT tests, tests on these 100 questions, and you circle mathematics 50, English 50. I don't know what they even called now. But please, that time is wrong on. People have papers. People actually have the technical competence. The thing to test is, are they emotionally competent to work at your organization? So think about this. Talk to your HR person to see how can you incorporate some of the things into the way you run your organization, especially the people aspect. These are what they call the 6 C's of interviewing. I just put there just for information: competence, character, communication, culture, fit, and correct direction. I would personally submit that these 6 C's of interviewing are also the 6 C's of career development. On one hand, you have competence, very important. You have to be competent if you're doing marketing. Are you competent in marketing? Sales, are you competent? HR, are you competent? That's a given. But over and above having competence, do you have the remaining 5? Because if you don't, even with your competence, you will either get in and remain stuck at the entry level role, and then people come and are promoted after you, or you will get in and then you start being toxic yourself because you're not moving, or they fire you, or you don't pass your probation. So reflect and figure out, what do I have, what don't I have, and how can I move forward. This is the model that Sullivan Mayer, as I said, those are the people that made this issue very important.